The last thing we really need at this stage is for threats of a trade war, sanctions and tariffs, because that would really start to hurt the global economy.
Firstly, Osmond, welcome back to our studios. We're very happy to have you back here in Geneva.
It's a pleasure to be here, thank you.
And we're going to sort of be talking about populism, which, you know, it started sort of the most recent wave of populism. It started in the UK with Brexit, and then it passed on to the US, and now sort of hitting the EU areas. With the populism, do you think that this could, you know, potentially affect the world order of things at the moment? And do you think we're on the verge of a new world order?
I think we're at a period where something may happen. I don't know that you can say it's going to. There's a sort of human tendency to revert to the mean, if you like. But if we have the US actively pursuing the America First policy and moving away from the post-Berlin Wall consensus where effectively America was the world's policeman, I do not think Russia is there to fill the gap, but I think China very soon may well be. I think Russia is a power that is fading away, but China is certainly a power that is growing in its ambition and growing in global ambition. And if the US retreats, I think China would be quite happy to do some replacing. So we will have to really see. This may be a temporary blip, this may be a temporary excursion into Trumpton. Or it may be a fundamental change. Certainly electorates are fed up with established politicians at this point, and they've been voting to make that very clear.
And so if the US was to kind of retreat into its isolationist policies, if there was a new world order, do you think sort of China would be the one on top?
I don't think China's ready to do that yet. I think you'd have a power vacuum, but power vacuums internationally are fairly dangerous things, especially if you are looking at a power vacuum where protectionism is trying to get countries to look to their own interests over and above multilateralism. We've had a period since 1989 of, by and large, multilateral free trade, increasing global cooperation. That has left many people disillusioned, and that has certain politicians ready to pick up on that and act accordingly. Now, we had a Dutch vote, which was a measure of sanity, but we have to get through a French election, we have a Turkish referendum, we have all sorts of different things, and realistically we don't really know where the Trump White House is heading at this point. I'm not quite sure they do. We will find out over time.
And sort of hypothetically, as you were saying before, you know, since the Berlin Wall, it's kind of been the US that have been the sort of global protector. If they were to no longer be that global protector, do you think we could see, you know, some real consequences?
If nobody is prepared to step up to the plate. Now, it is true what Donald Trump says, that European countries have not really been pulling their weight on the whole in NATO, and they do need to be adding a little bit more investment in defence. And in these areas, Germany could play a greater role, but it is historically very much more a peacekeeper than an aggressor. And I think we will see the US maybe being dragged out of a protectionist mode, depending on what happens in places like North Korea or in the South China Sea. But at the moment, the tendency is this America First doctrine, which is to try and get jobs back to America, but I think those jobs on the whole will be robot jobs rather than people jobs if they do come back. The last thing we really need at this stage is for threats of a trade war, sanctions and tariffs, because that would really start to hurt the global economy.
Do you think this populist movement, it's just a phase, or, you know, this is something that's really here to stay and, you know, could revolutionise, you know, politics as we know it?
I think most people's individual desire is to belong to a unit they can comprehend. Hence you have successionist movements like Catalan in Spain, Scotland maybe again, and people saying, well, maybe we want to leave the EU, because cooperation is great. No one remembers what it was like to have to change your euros into your French francs into Deutschmarks every time you crossed the border. But they do remember the sense of being French and what that means. And in the face of immigration and unemployment, they're disenchanted with leaders who say, be part of the big club. And people are prepared to stand up and bang the drum and say, be French, be very French, or be German and very German, or whatever it is. It's an appeal to an identity that many people feel they've lost. Now, I would like to hope that that would not go into a conflict area, but there is certainly a lot more tendency for people to want to be not European, but to be even regional, let alone just German, maybe from Bavaria or whatever it is. I don't think the EU will break up, but we do run the risk of it, and that's been dogging everybody's hopes and fears for the last few years, and it isn't over yet, I don't think.
Well, Osmond, as always, such a pleasure to have you back in our studios. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
That's all from myself and Osmond today, but if you like this video, there are plenty more on our website, dukascopy.tv.